Coach, can you talk about DeAndre Ayton? Again, he had 5 blocks in the first half. Just what has been his progression from day one until up to this point?
Well, DeAndre helped us win at Stanford by doing some things in other areas than we're used to seeing. I thought Stanford did a really good job defending him. And, no player, no matter how great they are, is going to be perfect every game. If you're a perimeter player, you always run into that one game, a couple games where the ball just doesn't seem to go in. Normally you're getting the same looks, but it just doesn't fall. For big guys, sometimes the crowded court, the double teaming, the different styles can affect you. And DeAndre's had probably more productive, and we've had more productive games being efficient to help him as well. But like a lot of the great ones do, the biggest play of the game was a great pass. And it was a clutch play, a lot of pressure, down one, not even a tie game on the road, found Raleigh along the baseline, and that was a big assist. And, you're right. Early, he set the tone with his blocks. If you have 6 blocks in a game, that's big as well. And, he had to play through some foul trouble. I think it made him tentative on both ends, but he's also a very young player, and I think it's a great learning experience for both him and our team to help him learn so that when that time comes again, that he doesn't feel like he felt at Stanford.
He said something that after Cal I thought was interesting about that officials were getting used to him. I mean, do you feel like, in retrospect, that it's also because he's so physical that it's been an adjustment on both sides, and getting used to what's a foul, what's not a foul with him?
Definitely. First of all, when he's on offense, it takes a lot to dislodge him. I think in the 20 games we've played, he maybe fell down twice. For a big guy to be around the basket like he has, he's just incredibly strong, has great balance, very sure of himself. So sometimes it's almost as if defenders can bounce off of him. I think a lesser guy physically, it would almost be striking at times that they take the hit and it really affects the shot. So he plays through contact really well, and I think that sometimes you can overlook the fact that maybe he got hit. And then defensively, he's both smart, but he's also incredibly quick. And you're not used to seeing somebody that size be that mobile. And I think that he has a knack for being right in front of people when they shoot it. And that doesn't mean he's fouling you when he's in front of you. He gets there very easily. He's not, lunging to get there. He's not desperate at the flight of the ball. So, those are things that I'm not even being critical of the official. Team, they're thinking about him when they're driving. They're thinking about him when they're turning to shoot close to the basket. He has that effect, and sometimes I don't even really think he realizes it.
Are there things defensively too where you have to tell him more so than anybody else because of what he is that he has to be careful?
No, he doesn't get in foul trouble. I mean, he really doesn't. I mean, for somebody his size, you look it up, 20 games. I mean, he's fouled out maybe once, twice. But very seldom is he in foul trouble because, like I said, he's incredibly mobile. He's also equally smart. And sometimes he'll play it safe, maybe almost too much. But, when you're him, again, you're used to people trying to go at him to get him in foul trouble. So he usually passes that test. Reed Travis is a handful, not just for Arizona, but any big guy who guards him. They're really in a predicament. He's just so heavy physically, but yet so mobile. And, you think about a guy his size, they're usually a very good low post player. Well, really the way he scores is by driving. So it's different. You play all these games and you play against them. It takes an adjustment. My hope is that, you play him the first time, some of that adjustment is just getting used to him. And the second time, maybe it's more to your advantage.
Is he the reason there's so many zone defenses in the league now?
I do think some teams are loading up against us zone, but In the 9 years that I've been at Arizona, even aside from that, this is the most zone that I've seen our conference play. And I'm watching other games, so it's not just our game or what they want to do against us. Maybe there's an extra 20% to that when they play us. But if you just go through it, starting in Pacific Northwest, Washington State, Oregon State, it's 4 for 4 right there. I think that both USC and UCLA really blended in, regardless of who they're playing. That's 6. Colorado didn't. They're playing it more now. They did against us. Utah plays all zone. Let's call it 7 of 8. Who am I missing here?
Cal Stanford.
So Cal plays almost all zone. You just saw Stanford. So 8 out of 9. You're about 8 out of 10 in Arizona State mixing in. So I'd say about 9 of the 11 teams, 8.5 of the 11 teams are predominantly zone. And even watching us run our man offense a little bit against Stanford, we're not getting the reps. I think every coach must feel that way because we're seeing so much zone. So I don't know what that means, but that's it.
Is it that way everywhere else around the country?
I don't think so.
Can you talk real quick about Dusan? It looks like he's playing some of the best basketball he's played since he's gotten here, and you're going to him a lot. Right.
So what you always hope with a player that's been in our program for multiple years is that their confidence grows. You certainly want to see them improve, and whatever role they once had, you want that role to grow. Both have happened for Dusan, but the biggest difference with Dusan is he's very sure of himself. He has incredible confidence, and he's gotten that confidence through hard work over a long period of time. It's not anything that I'm doing. I'm not. Certainly when he plays well, I make sure that he knows it. I encourage him. But he just shows up, and he's worked hard for 4 years, and he's really a product of his everyday work habits, more so than maybe anybody on our team. And it's great to see him have this success. Against Stanford, it wasn't just the statistics. It was the timeliness of the plays that he made. I mean, he made those moment of truth baskets, ones that if he doesn't make them, you might not win. And he had multiple shots, catches, and defensively did a good job as well. But it's really nice to see his confidence because that also helps him be the best leader he can be, because not only is he leading by example, but I think people on our team believe in him. They see his confidence, and that's really been a great quality for our team.
This year, or was it in the past?
I think it just incrementally has grown over his time at Arizona, from one spring to the next fall. Every season has their valleys and peaks, so he's hit his lows and highs. But I think I've shared this with him, regardless of if he has a bad game or a game maybe where he doesn't play as well, you expect him to bounce back because he's just at a higher level. I'm sure if you talk to the other coaches in our conference, one of the things they're always concerned about is him. Because you focus a lot on DeAndre and, Alonzo, Raleigh, and, you think about our team, but, he's the X factor a lot of times because the shots that Dusan shoots are a very high percentage. I mean, he's shooting in and around 60% on those hooks, 2-footers, and he's big. I mean, there's no denying that.
Do you coach him differently, given the culture or whatever? Just a weird question, but do you, because of how his temperament is or whatever?
I guess you learn every player. You learn your learner. You certainly don't say the same things, do the same things to bring out the best in all of these players. But I think I've probably learned over time with Dusan, his intent is so good, his intent is so pure that it's hard to get angry at him or disappointed in him when maybe he doesn't do something because if he doesn't do it, it's either A, he screwed up, which they all do, or maybe he didn't execute on that particular moment. But his intent is always good. There's never that selfishness or mind on himself, and therefore he didn't do that team thing. He has a great way of being able to play within the confines of the team.
A couple of weeks back, when you guys lost to Colorado, Tad Boyle's comments after the game in regards to the FBI and how it was sweeter to beat you guys because of that situation. What were your initial thoughts of that?
My focus is just on coaching our team. And that's the thing that you learn, being able to take a group from one game to the next. Just even watching the Stanford game, as great as it is that we won, and it was a win that had a lot to do with will. We willed our way to the finish line. But there's a lot of things that we have to improve on and learn from that game. So, how do you go from teaching your guys the things that we didn't do well, and at the same time balancing the credit of we had a hard-fought road victory, and then moving on to Colorado and knowing that the last time that we played them, that they played better than us, they played harder than us, and we have to be a better team this time around, more ready for the game than we were the last time, and that's my focus.
It seems like you're able to do that. I mean, Andy Enfield, you probably heard, had a problem with it, and he made that pretty clear, it seemed like. I mean, is that difficult for you to do at times, to just stay focused, regardless of what people are doing or saying?
No, I mean, that's the job here, and there's always a lot going on with our team on and off the court, and just making sure that everybody is moving in the right direction, and and that's where my focus is. That's where all of our focus is, to get ready for the next game.
Well, I was wondering too, you've had seemed like a pretty good relationship with Tad Boyle. Is it still that way, or?
Like I said, my focus is on getting ready for this week. And Utah's equally dangerous, as you guys know. On a quick turnaround, the last time the games were flip-flopped, so we had a lot more time to prepare for Utah. They're a tough team to prepare for. This week you have to, I think, in some ways prepare for both, because Utah has a unique style, and we're going to have to play them on a quick turnaround. So we have two challenging games, I think, with two hungry teams that are looking for a road win. And, I know Colorado was able to beat both Arizona State and us at home, and did the opposite for Utah. They lost really two really hard-fought games. So
For you now?
You learn to trust these guys a little bit more as you watch them, not only in practice, but, man, we have a lot of games under our belt now, 20 games. Recently, I would say the last 3 or 4 weeks, more so than any other time, Dylan has shown some growth in those things that we're really asking him to embrace as a member of our team. So we're not just judging him on shooting or how many baskets he scored. At Cal, he went 4 for 4 from 3, which is great. Love for him to go 4 for 4 every game. But that's not why he's going to play more. Being a trustworthy defensive player on assignment, making sure that he can get the ball inside. Against Stanford, for example, a couple of our best plays getting the ball inside against the zone, Dylan was the passer. And trying to really make sure he knows that on this team, in his role, those things that sometimes are chalked up to be little are really big. Because really what we need a lot from our bench is to come in the game. And, you hear that old adage of do your job, but the job is, to defend, to rebound. Dylan has rebounded the ball well. To take what the defense gives, to play error-free. Don't try to force or make the home run play. Just move the ball. And that's gonna be something that this team will really grow from. And it's not just Dylan, it's anybody who comes in the game, because, we have enough firepower through the starting group. It's not that we don't want our bench to score, but some of those guys can come in and play really well and it not show up a lot on the box score. So I think it takes time to really get that message across of what we really mean. And I think Dylan recently has made more of those plays, has been more in that role. And it's good to see. He's the one advantage. He was here a year last year when a lot of the other guys weren't. And he also has another year of college basketball under his belt. So it makes sense for him to emerge. But we need everybody. I think the guys on the bench, even in the Stanford game, when we made that run, we put Emmanuel in, had Dylan in, and those guys, they were ready to go. You saw what Keanu meant in the Oregon game. And again, it wasn't the points per game that we look at. It was those hard plays, the shot block coming in the game, giving us energy. And so I think we have a number of players that can do it. It's taken a little bit of time, and I think it's up to us to get that message across that that's what we're looking for as much as anything. For example, you come in a game, you take a quick bad shot, it just doesn't make sense. You know, you have somebody like DeAndre on the block. You know, you're in the flow. You're up 8. A quick bad shot. You know, trying to make a home run pass that equals a turnover. It changes the game in the opposition's favor. And right now, we don't need that from the guys coming in the game. We just need them to be steady, confident, play their role. And if an opportunity to score presents itself, by all means, take it. But don't come in the game looking for that. That's not going to keep you in the game.
At the beginning of the year, he was suspended. Would you probably say from that point, he's probably been one of the more locked-in players on your team?
Dylan's attitude. Nice to have the, I don't even want to say an extra day, but that normal progression in week. I know coming off the Utah game, we have a quick turnaround and another long road trip. So we have to take advantage of this week being here for school and making sure that we're ready for both games.
What did they do specifically, or a lot of things that was the difference in that game, Colorado, to beat you guys?
I thought they were more patient on offense than maybe they were prior to our game. More deliberate. They ran some off the ball screening that hurt us. We weren't as ready for that. And look, being ready for something, there's two parts to it. You know, you can have the greatest scheme. You got to play with high energy and effort. If the high energy and effort isn't there, it doesn't matter your scheme. We were probably 0 for 2. We probably didn't do a good job with our scheme and our effort. So that's why the first half there felt that way. Plus, you're playing against a team that was doing a great job against us.
So I was going to kind of go there. Specifically to that game, it was more for your end mentally than physically and being ready, where you guys maybe just didn't show up, and that happens.
A little bit of both. I think you have to give Colorado a lot of credit for how they played, how well they played, the energy that they played with. And, you know, that's a difficult trip. Historically, that's been a hard trip, you know, going through the Utah Salt Lake game and traveling that night. We had a noon tip-off on Saturday. All teams go through it. You know, Oregon had to do that. When Oregon played at ASU, they had a big win. Thursday evening, quick turnaround, noon game at McHale on Saturday. So all of us have to go through the unbalanced nature of this. And that's why there's really not an excuse. It's more about you being ready than blaming the schedule or any other factor. But, you know, Colorado also played us a lot of 2-3 zone as well. And which has been a staple, you know, like we talked about here at the beginning. Just about every team isn't just playing us zone, they're playing a lot of zone against each other as well.
You guys have won a lot of games down the stretch. Saturday, was that a little bit of a different kind of win for you guys? And do you think at the end of the season, when you look back, you might think that was one of the turning moments of the year?
That was the game that I think we reached the deepest to win. Now, we really, being down double digits midway through the second half against a good team, things not going well across the board. I thought that our effort, our will, togetherness, you know, confidence, belief. I talked about Dusan. You know, during that stretch, Dusan made a couple big plays. We subbed. Guys came in off the bench and sparked us. So, you know, those are the games that you hope you can be on the positive end of once in a while, especially away from home, because, you know, I feel like I'm a broken record in October. You know, you talk about defense. There's always those games, especially on the road, where you're going against a lot. And if you're missing free throws, maybe you have a high turnover game. You have one player in foul trouble like DeAndre. Can you fight through it and still leave with a hard-fought victory? That's the difference between maybe a great season and a good season. So that's one that went in our favor for sure. And I credit Stanford. They're a good team. You know, they've gone through an amazing amount of injuries in November and December. And obviously Davis got hurt in our game. But when they're healthy, I think they have a lot of parts that make them an excellent college team.
So since that Colorado game, you were complaining that the guys you couldn't reach them, you couldn't get through. I mean, do you feel like a better response rate? You're certainly playing better since then. I don't know. Does that become a difficult point maybe?
No, I think that if we played Stanford maybe at the date or that weekend that we played in so, being able to talk about the way we beat Stanford in the future, that's something that we'll call upon to maybe regain confidence, or, that you've heard it a million times, those teams that have been there before seem to do it again and again. So that's one example. But the other example is knowing the youth of our team, how many new players we have, that every game on the road is very difficult in readiness, and you have to play hard. You have to really play hard to be successful. So I think that's the lesson we learned there at Colorado as much as anything. And maybe it's because of that helped us beat Stanford, I hope.
Kentucky fell out the top 25 today. Is that at all a statement on how difficult it is to stay at the top in this?
American is going to show up in college and be your best player. That doesn't mean they're not going to be an NBA player one day, or that they're not a very valuable member of your team, and maybe that next year or 2 years later that they'll be all conference. I call on Solomon Hill a lot when I think of, he wasn't a McDonald's All-American, but Solomon was very highly recruited. Kentucky was one of his choices. And if you just judge him on his first year, it's very difficult to feel like he would have been ready. But, when he left 4 years later, you look at what he's done, the amount of money he's made and the career he's having. I know this year he's injured, but, it took Solomon longer. So it's hard to predict. Derek Williams, I'll never forget people, I wasn't from the West, so a lot of people said, hey, I think you got a diamond in the rough there in Derek Williams. You think you're going to redshirt him? How much do you think he's going to play? I don't know if anyone would have predicted that he would have been the second overall pick in 2 years at Arizona. So the imperfection can go either way, and that's what's so hard. And, someone like Kentucky deserves all the credit in the world, because people think it's easy just to juggle 7 or 8 freshmen who are highly thought of and in, year out, get there. The fact they've been so consistent doing it that way, I would say, is more of an outlier than the norm.
Do you think Stanford is one of those teams that's kind of a difficult team to assess for like the tournament committee later on down the road, because they have all their starters back and they're playing much better basketball now as opposed to at the beginning of the year when they lost a lot?
I'm sure, but the good news for Stanford is they have plenty of the season left. They have plenty of conference games left, and if they are truly the team that we all feel they are, and I think they feel good about who they are when they have all of their players, that there'll come a time, maybe not this week, next week, but as we approach March, that they've probably earned their way back into it. I hope so, because the injuries are the one thing that you can't control. And prior to the year, if you would have asked me who do you think the top 4 teams in our conference are, I would have probably named Stanford as one of them based on their combination of experience and the recruiting. And I would have underestimated how talented their freshmen really are. The impact of Stanford's freshmen is probably the most in our conference. If you think about starting roles, productivity, the meaning of those guys to their success. So that, coupled with players like Reed Travis, Humphrey, who's a senior, Dorian Pickens, they really have, I think, a good blend and a good balance. And they're going to be a tough team. And that's why I think we're very thankful we got out of there with the win.
Sounds like Alonzo might have a chance. They haven't announced it.
level that he's going to get to sometime over this month, maybe next month. February is probably when it'll happen, where, that he takes some of the things that he's improved on and really finishes it off. But you can't take for granted his ability to make clutch free throws at the end of games. He's the best that I've seen at getting there, wanting the ball, going to the line and delivering. And, his efficiency shooting the ball from three, especially when he gets good looks, and learning how to play against different defenses. We've had teams trap him. Colorado is one. We've had a lot of different types of zones. Some zones really stick on him, others don't. So, he's learned how to play against a variety of defenses as well. But we need him to be at his best, and I think for our team to really have a great season in the Pac-12, he's going to have just weeks like he's just had, and our team needs him to be a great player, and he's capable of doing it for sure.
How did Raleigh respond physically? I know he's in the walking boot today. Is that just precautionary, or?
I think so. It's tricky when somebody goes through the surgery that he has, because you really rely more on him than anything else. The X-rays are negative, and we're going to be incredibly smart with him in terms of an extra day here or there, and the totality of practice. We're probably still too far from the finish line to just think only about games, especially him, because he's missed so much time. But just listening to him, making sure that we understand what his pain is, because we want him healthy for the long haul and healthy for his future as well. It's a fine line. Anything can happen to any of our players, but the things that we can control, we want to do the right way. And that's why we shut him down for the Cal game. It had nothing to do with who we were playing or anything else. It was the right thing for him. And if we have to do that again every once in a while, we'll do that. I know it's not the perfect world for him and our team if we do that, but big picture it is.
Did he have any soreness on the way back or yesterday?
Not that I'm aware of.
With Colorado, I know it hasn't been long, but anything you've watched other games since then, anything different that thrown out or doing?
They've gone to UCLA and had a big road win. And, I think the players that hurt us, George King being at the top of the list, have hurt a lot of other teams. He's a senior. He can do it from beyond the three-point line. They do a good job of playing him at both a 3 and a 4. I think he's the third leading rebounder in the conference, which is some statement for somebody his size. They're, I think, an improving defensive team, and they're one of our conference's overall best defensive teams.
With McKinley Wright, you blame March for having to deal with him at all? Or?
Yeah, I don't know the dynamics of it all, but he's been a great addition to Colorado and a great addition to the Pac-12.
Coming off the road sweep last week, what's maybe most promising to you about your team heading into this week's game?
Everybody's eager to improve, and I think that sometimes the thrill of victory in a road situation like the one we went through, those road sweeps, I think we've had 12 in the 9 years I've been here, and that's not a whole lot, considering that we've been near the top of the conference and have won it 4 times. So I think that this year's team experiencing what it really feels like and all that goes into preparing for 2 games, being away on a long trip, and leaving with that thrill of victory at Stanford and Cal, where, that's what he means when he talks about a road sweep. I think that can bring a team together, and I hope that that moment at Stanford, and playing without Raleigh against Cal, guys being called on that maybe weren't being called on as much, that whole experience can continue to grow us closer together, give us an additional confidence. If you're Doosan, what's the difference in Doosan? He's never been more confident. He's maybe never been more ready or prepared, but he believes in himself, and it's great to see him do that under pressure on the road. And what that does is that fosters him as a leader, You can't have a better kid than him as a leader, but what gives him credibility is when he plays that way and he has that confidence. So now he truly can lead by example.
Thanks.
Yep.